Hey, this is Mike Diercksen from Proactive, and you're listening to the Building Bite podcast. Tune in as we spotlight our guests, Jake Concannon of Gallagher, Kristen Weber of Liberty Mutual, and Inga Mackereth of Hourigan Construction. Our episode is focused on successful collaboration in the construction insurance space. For more information on this episode and others, please check out the Building Bite at www.buildwithproactive.com.
Welcome to the Building Bite podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals, where you'll hear from the experts about key topics that will help you be successful. I'm Chris Epps, a Senior Director with Proactive, and I'm joined here with my co-host, Mike Diercksen, our Manager of Marketing and Business Development. Our guests today are a collection of thought leaders within the construction insurance space, which includes Jake Concannon, VP with Gallagher, Kristen Weber, Underwriting Officer for SDI with Liberty Mutual, and Inga Mackereth, Corporate Insurance Manager at Hourigan Construction. And our topic today is successful collaboration in the construction insurance space. Welcome back to each of you, Jake, Kristen, Inga. Happy to have you back. How are you all doing today?
Doing well, thanks.
Good to be here.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you guys on. Mike, how about yourself? You ready to roll?
Doing great, Chris. Yeah, I'm excited for this. And we just mentioned, but Kristen willed this into existence. She realized, hey, we got something here. So I'm excited to have this conversation with all three of these great people.
And she pulled in all the heavy hitters for today's discussion. So before we dive into our main topic, I was hoping that maybe each of you could give a little bit of background about who you are and your journey to your current role within your respective firms. And Kristen, I guess since it was your idea, we'll start with you.
Man, I need to learn to keep my mouth quiet more often, right? No, with that, my journey started back in 2006. I know, quite a long time ago. When I got involved with this management, it was to underwrite subcontractors for what is known today as SDI. I enjoyed a lot of growth, serving in different risk management roles for general contractors of various sizes over those years. Then an opportunity presented itself at AGC a couple of years ago to join Liberty Mutual, where I would focus on the subcontractor default insurance. This was a chance for me to sit on the other side of the table and view risk from a different perspective, but also understand the circumstances in which the insureds face daily.
Wonderful. And Inga, how about yourself? How did you get to where you are today?
So like Kristen, started my career quite a few years ago, right out of college in the construction industry, worked for a really small general contractor, recruited by Hourigan, came in and started on the operations side, slowly morphed through the operations and into the insurance risk management role here at Hourigan. I've been here 15 years, managing all of their programs, including our SDI and rolling CSET programs.
Okay, wonderful. And then Jake, last but not least, how about yourself?
Sure. A Cinderella story out of the Bay Area here. Started in 2005. I was at University of Arizona playing rugby and studying political science. So you can see how a career in insurance brokerage just is the perfect bridge from that. But in 2005, I was a summer college intern for Gallagher and drank the Kool-Aid. Started in the fall of 2006 in our construction vertical, which is based in the Bay Area, which is where I'm housed and headquartered out of, and started getting into a lot of different things, wrap-ups, surety, captives, and this thing called SubGuard at the time, and now it's sub-default insurance SDI, but anything related to construction risk management for folks that are building things is what I've found myself in these days. I'm part of a much bigger team at Gallagher, and we have a lot of fun being risk management nerds and working with great folks like Kristen and Inga and yourselves.
Yeah, so this is really a really awesome opportunity for us. We're so excited to have the three of you on. And I would just make a quick note that if any of our listeners haven't listened to the individual episodes with these three panelists, please, by all means, check out our website, go back there and take a listen. A lot of great information there. But in this process of creating this idea and kind of coming to this, part of our discussion before getting together, we wanted to discuss what truly makes a successful collaboration. And in order to do that, I think we need to clearly define what we identified as the three most important things, phases or functions within SDI coverage. And the three things would be implementation, management, and claims. And so with that, I would ask Inga, as the GC part of this panel, to maybe kick things off regarding, what do you think is necessary for successful implementation? What does that process look like for you, and what are you looking for when you're purchasing that kind of insurance?
I'd say you can go all the way back to the beginning for those that might not have an SDI policy. It is continuous discussions with your broker. It is a team approach to evaluate, to really understand what SDI does and what the implications are with policies, procedures. If there is a claim, what is that impact to the company? Mm-hmm. How are we protecting ourselves? How are we going to be able to deliver the best products with the job? And that goes down to an evaluation of your balance sheet. What risk exposure can you take on? SDI has a fairly large deductible. And so when you start off the program, you have a risk that if there's a claim that has to be funded, and have to understand where is that funding coming from. With Hourigan, we also had to evaluate our current processes. How do we go out for RFP to our subcontractors? How do we select our subcontractors? And what controls do we have to manage that subcontractor base? Is it contract language? Is it policies and procedures, daily journals, the things that we do to make sure that our subs are performing within their contract? And so when we started our program, we had to go through and we implemented a pre-qual process to do a thorough evaluation of all of the subcontractors. And we utilized that with our broker and our carrier of what items they really look for high risk. And then we actually found that we had to educate our subcontractors. As much as it was a challenge for us to change ourselves to comply with the carrier, our subs didn't understand what we were doing and why we were asking for them to submit this information annually. So we did a bunch of meetings with our subcontractors to come in, talk to them that it's, we're not trying to pry into your business, but we're trying to understand what your needs are. And that was our largest success of kicking off our program, was being collaborative with everybody, not just levels above us. And then it's continuous training internally and externally of how this works.
Yeah, gold stars all around for the pre-qual process, the training, things like that. But you do mention, Inga, that there's a collaboration, right, from the get-go, from implementation, going from, hey, we don't have this policy, to creating something like that. So what stuck out to you guys? And maybe I'll kick it over to Jake as the broker first before we go to Kristen as the carrier. But Jake, as a broker, when you have an insured and they're looking to implement something, what's the thing that's really pulling you in, and how do you help alleviate some of those concerns and work with them on that process?
Yeah, great question. I'm really curious Kristen's thoughts, because she has sat on multiple sides of the fence here. So very curious what she has to say. But from our perspective, whenever you're implementing something new, whether it's SDI, a CSIP, a captive, or some other thing that we don't even know about yet that's going to be created soon, to us, the best way to implement something is there's got to be a commitment from the top, from the leadership of the company. And we're talking about SDI, so creating an SDI culture that's going to fit the company culture. And what do I mean by that is what's the true north of the company? Are we going to use this on every job, or is this going to be a pick and choose type of situation that we're not going to put it on everything? What does our pre-qual look like, and how are we going to interact with our subs? Are we going to do what Inga did and make this a collaboration? Are we just going to tell them this is bid the specs per the job, and all of those things? What are we going to do when one of our clients who we've been working with for years says, this is new, you haven't charged us this before, why are you doing this now? All of those are real life situations that you're going to be encountered with. The answers to those questions become a lot easier. The blocking and tackling, if you will, of implementing a program, once the leadership of the company has decided this is how we're going to make SDI fit, or this is how SDI is going to fit into how we do business. Once that's decided upon, the other pieces in my mind become easy blocking and tackling.
I couldn't agree more, Jake. The cultural aspect of that is the key to implementation. So you have to have the awareness, the knowledge, and then the acceptance of anything new that you're looking to put in place in an organization. If you don't have that support from the top, if you don't have support from operations, no matter what efforts you put in as a broker, Inga puts in as the risk manager, if you don't have that support in a 360 manner, it's not going to work. So it goes right back to our main topic, right? Everybody has to be collaborative and choose to work together. That you may not understand the product day one, but ask the questions. You have those resources there to be able to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to have an owner that's going to bring up the question, you've never charged this before. Why now? Why my project? Why this rate? But when everybody's bought in and you've done that education and training, you're prepared to answer those questions and go forth and be successful. And I've found that those are then the owners that they're more educated about it. And on that next project that they're doing with you or that they're asking for an RFP on, they're now requiring that product to be on there because they understand the benefits as well.
Yeah, it's truly, when everyone's pulling in the same direction, it's amazing what we can do, right? And it doesn't matter from a stakeholder perspective, right here, broker, GC, and carrier, but also the owner side, right? Seeing the value provided in that program. And so that kind of lends itself to the next segment here, which we identified was management, right? So we talked about what does it look like implementing a new policy such as SDI, but how do we manage it, right? There's a lot that goes into that. And I would say from the insured side, the insurer side, Kristen, what can you elaborate on that from as an underwriter, helping the insureds manage and maintain that process, like Inga mentioned, continuous training. What are you guys looking for, and how do you assist insureds when it comes to that?
So I would say the partnership and collaboration really is in the infancy at the implementation point, right? You've done a lot of work, so it doesn't feel infant at that point. But now that you're at the management, it's all right, it's growing. We all went through the vetting, the underwriting process to make sure we're all aligned on the intent of the program, the organizations and their cultures were in alignment. Now you've got a unique project ask that comes up that you couldn't have imagined or seen with a crystal ball. The insured has sold their organization and now the customer's on the product. Someone throws that curveball at you and we all have to respond, and in a way that exemplifies that partnership we talked about on those first few dates, if you will, This can be anything from an insured being a minority in a JV to trying to find a way to cover a lower tier entity and several other scenarios that we could sit here and talk about all day long. But really that partnership and that collaboration comes in at this point in time because you're now managing that program with your partners. Another aspect of supporting the insured is in the services that we're providing as an insurer and the knowledge being shared. All parties want to see one another succeed. So we need to share best practices, trends, provide ongoing education. So Inga's out there saying, okay, I've put a new program in place, then maybe with a new carrier or a new product, right? So what other resources does she have to support her in educating the operations folks? So that's where, it really comes together and we say, we're here to support you. Here's how we're willing to support you. These are the resources we have internally outside of our team that we're willing to share with you that make you more informed and help you to continue to educate and grow.
Great take, Kristen. And honestly, I think kind of like partnering up with that, right? Inga, you mentioned the training operations and kind of what you're doing there, but leveraging the partners, right? Being able to bring that together. And maybe as the insured, you're going, well, I'm implementing this for the first time, but my brokers have done this at several different GCs similar to me. My carrier, obviously underwriting this policy, have seen this one or two times. What does it mean to you to be able to kind of lean on them in those situations? And with that maintenance, maybe asking for help or learning those industry best practices?
It's something we do every day. Our retiring president and COO has always said it's iron sharpening iron. And you partner with the best to become the best. And we don't want to make mistakes, but we can learn from others' mistakes. So when our broker is seeing, hey, we're seeing these wood framers that are constantly defaulting, we need to, are you really evaluating if you're going into that market, or have you looked at these things? Same thing with the carriers of evaluating our processes and saying these are the best practices, or these are even better practices. Is there a way to implement it? And we can make that evaluation because we want to be the best, so we don't have to use the policy, but knowing that the policy is there if we were to need it. And then having that collaboration that we know we're trying to do our best.
Excellent. Yeah, Jake, and then I would just round it out with you over there as a broker. So, as Inga mentioned, maybe using data and resources, like how are you guys really leaning in and assisting in this process as well?
We try to find as many clients like Inga and Hourigan as possible. That's for sure, because there's only so many that take the information and run with it and utilize it like they do. And we're fortunate to have a lot of those companies as clients. And as you mentioned, as a resource, relying on your partners. We've been doing this for 20 plus years in sub-default, and we have over 40 clients in this space. Kristen and Liberty and the insurers have even more. There's a lot of data out there, really good information. How do you utilize it? Well, that's where a broker partner and your underwriting partner can help, because SDI is a customizable program. There's a lot of flexibility with it, which makes it awesome as a broker. So many different puzzles to get to put together based on what that GC needs. Well, at the same time, it's a severity product. You're not going to use this very much, hopefully not ever. But if you do, you've had a bad day. It's going to be a really bad day. And we'll get into that later. I know that's on the docket. But because of that, there's a lot of critical thinking that needs to go into the management of the program. There's a lot of back and forth and collaborative information sharing and training. Most of my time, once the program's implemented, is spent doing trainings for clients and their operations teams, because there's a lot of bad info or misinformation, if you will, about SDI out there. So they can train the owner clients on why this is a good deal. And then what I just mentioned, spending a lot of time helping our clients have SDI approved by owners. A lot of owners we've encountered over my 20 years or so have come over to the light side of the force, if you will, in SDI. There's some that are speccing it now. The ones that truly get the right info, for the most part, have become accepting of it. So focusing on getting the right information to our partners like Inga and working with folks like Kristen to give that to clients so that they can get the program approved. And if there is that catastrophic scenario, they've got a backstop there. That's where we're spending our time once the program's up and running.
And Jake, maintaining that relationship and continuing to collaborate and communicate across all those kind of party lines, you start to see how it is imperative for that successful relationship for all three parties. It definitely makes a difference, as you alluded to, and we're kind of getting to a transition here where you teed up nicely. So when you get to claims, which is, nobody wants to talk about, and we hope it never happens, but, when it does, you do want to have that open communication and collaboration. Once you get beyond those first few dates, as Kristen mentioned, and it's not something we enjoy talking about, but it doesn't have to be completely confrontational, adversarial. It can be a more open communication and dialogue, around the claims process. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit? And it starts out as oh no, here it comes, we got a claim, but how do you lighten that load? How do you make that process better?
Oh man, when I figure it out, you'll know, because I'll be off on a boat. But no, it is, like I mentioned, claims are no fun. If you have a sub-default, you're having a bad day. There's no magic wand that's going to come in and all of a sudden make everything better. And we, along with the majority of the SDI industry, we're out there touting how great of a program this is should you have a sub-default. And that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. It's much better than the alternatives, significantly. However, it's still a bad day. You have a sub-default with significant costs, and the project is going to be impacted, and your time is going to be completely turned around and twisted. So what do? Start from the beginning. And just like we were talking about earlier in implementing, it's set the expectation early on. Get the right people in the room. Let's set the foundation of this claim and the communication protocols and expectations of coverage out of the gate. That is, I'm curious, Chris and Michael, your thoughts in your position at Proactive. You've seen a lot of claims, and to me, that's where things go sideways. So trust, I think, is a big theme in the conversation we're having today. And you can tell in a claim when there's trust and there's not trust. You just know when it's there, and you know when it's not there, because tide starts hunkering down and things start becoming more confrontational. Our experience has been, if you can have trust in your broker partners and you have trust in the SDI insurer partner, which for the majority of the time, the SDI carriers out there are doing a really good job with their claims. They're trying to help contractors find coverage. I don't know many other lines of insurance where the insurance company is trying to help the claimant find coverage. It doesn't mean it's always there, and it doesn't mean everyone's going to like the answer. But if you can get to a point, anyone listening out there, where you're trusting your broker and the insurance partner, and it may not be exactly where you want it to go, but it's all making sense, and that's the direction it's heading. Relying on those partners and being able to move forward. There's some hard truths that come out in SDI claims, whether you want to accept them or not. We try to be a broker that tells people what they should hear, not what they want to hear, which gets me into trouble a lot. But to me, that's the key to all of this. There needs to be some expectation right out of the gate at the foundation of the claim of where this is going to go, how the tea leaves are looking, so that when we do get to settlement, it's not a huge battle and fight.
Yeah, Jake, it is one of those few products where you're right. We try to come at it, because Mike and I do review a lot of claims with a sense of empathy. One, because I came from the field. I came from construction. I've had to package claims before. It's not an enviable position for anybody. And we try to be mindful of the fact that, somebody's had this claim pop up. They're likely to have, potential manpower issues, turnover issues. It could be creating cash flow issues, delays on the project. You got an insolvent subcontractor that just stops showing up one day, creates a litany of problems that you have to deal with, aside from just packaging a claim, and trying to get that over to your carrier. So I guess, Inga, maybe that would be a good transition to you. I mean, from being in those shoes, what does that look like? How does the collaboration and the communication come into play to help maybe get out in front of that process or ease that claims process a little bit for the GC?
Yeah, well, knock on wood, we have yet to have a first SDI claim, but we've had claims. And so understanding that any day that you get notified of a claim is a bad day, and there is a process. And I think it is the immediate involvement with the proper people and not thinking you can do it on your own, the collaboration with your broker, with your carrier, and following the processes. Here at Hourigan, we are very open book. It's building that trust. Here's the situation. Here's what we are. We're not trying to hide or finagle. So you're building that foundation, or continuing to build that foundation from day one to process and work through. And when they're asking for information, it's for them to get clarity. It's not that they don't trust you. They need other information. It's getting it to them, being prompt. I have found not delaying is where it's going to be key, and specifically probably in the SDI world of, this is a huge impact to our project and we need to move, and we need to keep the progress going in the right direction and not rolling backwards.
And Kristen, just from the carrier side, what are your expectations there? Again, it's not a great time when a GC ends up with a claim in their lap, and usually comes about pretty quickly, sometimes even by surprise, it seems. It's just sometimes they're unavoidable. But when you see those claims and you get that call, what's first thing on your mind? How's that, all of the communication leading up to that point, how does that culminate for the carrier?
The communication is the key factor, right? As soon as you know about that claim, letting your insurance carrier know that. I think coming from an operations side as well, there a lot of times there's the feeling of like, I don't want to raise my hand. I don't want to acknowledge there's a problem. I've got this. I can get it under control. I don't need to make anybody else worry, right? That's not the right attitude to go forward with. It should be, okay, let me raise my hand and ask for help. And that way we can all go forward in the same path together. So when we get notice of a potential claim here, it's, okay, let's all hop on a call together. It's the insurer, the insured, the broker, so that we all have the same understanding of what's going on and how we're going to move forward together as a team, right? The insured is it's their choice how they want to proceed, but they do have us as a resource. They've got their broker as a resource who have gone through other claims before and said, okay, here, maybe we can provide you a best practice, or this is how something is played out previously. This could help to make this process less painful. Let's also talk about maybe where you're at from a documentation standpoint, the things that you need to expect to have and be able to provide as you move through this process, so that when you're at that first RFI, you don't turn around and look with total shock of like, wait, they want what from me? That there's clarity and that you've set that expectation up front. So that open communication that we think we've all really hit on is the key factor in this collaboration and partnership. Is nobody wants to be the one to call and say, I have a claim. I don't want to pick up the phone and hear Inga tell me, hey, I have a claim, right? But it's part of life. It is a reality in the world that we live in. So being able to communicate that and communicate timely goes a long way in making an unfortunate process a little less cumbersome.
Unfortunately, we need claims. Otherwise, SDI wouldn't exist and we wouldn't be talking here today. So kind of good that they're out there, at least for all of us. But we don't want them at the same time, especially for Inga.
Yeah, and Kristen, you kind of nailed it in terms of, from where we sit and reviewing claims, like you're hoping at the point you do have a claim that you're just getting kind of coaching and feedback at that point on some of those best practices. And it's not the first time the insured's thought about it. Like when you have a claim, it's not the time to be starting to dig in and then open lines of communication. So you can tell the difference on the back end when you see those claims. So I get exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, and Chris, following that up, at the conference, there was actually a panel of risk engineers all within the SDI space. And one of the questions that came up was from, I believe, a GC, but they said, hey, a lot of times maybe we're nervous to give you notice of a claim in the event that it might raise premiums, right? That this might kind of put us a red flag in the wrong direction. And unanimously, right? It wasn't even just the panel here, but across the board, basically the whole room from the broker and insurance carrier side, you're like, whoa, that's not the case with this product, guys. We want you to know. I think the direct quote was, I've never heard of anyone getting their premiums raised because they resolved the claim quickly and successfully. Like we're not going to hurt you for that. So it's truly a collaborative space, and maybe that runs against the grain from some other practices or some experiences that people have had, but definitely one that inspires trust and confidence. And so with that, I would kind of turn that around, right? So we've had this great conversation so far today, and maybe someone's listening like, they're being coached, right? They're saying what they want to say. This, whatever. But it takes trust, right? So Kristen, I'll go to you first, but what are some of these challenges as the underwriter that you face that require that trust on your end?
All right, so we're going to steer away from claims because obviously we could talk a lot about trust and claims, but one of the areas that really comes to mind is when it comes to these large projects that, throughout the space we've heard about, having sort of a sub-maximum. Well, the projects are getting bigger, subcontracts are getting bigger. So the ability for a general contractor to have the autonomy to write these large subcontracts without having to seek, if you will, approval from the insurer is a great example of trust that, we've done our due diligence. We now have a partnership and we are trusting these GCs and the broking partners that are coming to us and saying, all right, they're doing the processes, the pre-qual that they said that they would do. They have confidence in the decision making of their ops teams. And so you're telling me, and I'm going to throw out a number, that it's going to be $130 million electrical package. Okay, well, we're trusting the GCs that they're doing their due diligence to get there and to make those decisions, right? That we don't want to be the impediment to them being able to do their business and to do so in a timely manner, because as we've all learned in the past couple of years, time is very, very precious. And if you can lock in a rate today with a subcontractor, you better get on that right now, because that may not be the same rate that you'll get from them 30 days from now. So again, a lot of trust in saying, hey, these things are getting bigger and bigger, but we trust you in the processes. Go ahead and make those decisions and go out there and conduct your business. Because again, you know that job better. You know your subcontractors better than we do. So go and make those decisions.
True. It's like the boss that doesn't want to micromanage you, and they say, hey, I expect you to get your job done and do it the right way, like we've trained you. And everyone always tends to appreciate those bosses more than the one that's constantly over their shoulder, like, show me exactly how you did that. Do it again. Did you do this here? So Inga, kind of picking that over to you then, what does that look like for you, that trust factor, right? What does that mean for the insured?
Yeah, I would say our goal is to never have to put the trust to the test. Ours is continuously building that trust and maintaining that trust, keeping the communication. I think with Gallagher, the regular phone calls, they say that a lot of times they get, so tell me, if this was to happen, what does this mean? That's not Hourigan's approach. Our broker says, he's like, that normally means that's happening for them. Right. If I call and do that, it's more I'm being inquisitive because I've had peers or things like that. But if we have an issue, it's an immediate. We need you. We're trusting you. We need you to trust us to figure out how to get this done. So that might be the trust factor there that we're testing. But we're, always pushing to do what we say we were going to do, to build that and reinforce so that there's never a doubt in what we've done. If that time comes that there's, we need to verify what we did. Right.
So Jake, if you get a phone call and it's like, oh, I have this friend and she's a, insurance risk manager at another company. We know where that's going.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically, I never said who my friend was.
Yeah.
I just said I have a friend. I'm a social person. But no, what about for you, Jake? Right, as the broker in this, there's, again, we've mentioned the trust factor. So what are you looking for in that? What's the best thing for you?
I think as the broker of the group, I take the cake for being the least trusted operation of everyone here. No, it's life as a broker, constantly getting second guessed and questioned. So that's kind of what we do. And when it comes to trust and a client and insurer relationship where it's there or not there, I mentioned this earlier, any relationship, you just know, you feel it when trust is there and you know when it's not there. And it's really hard to put a metric to it, but some examples I could give would be on the general contractor side, coming up for a renewal. We've got a great thing going with Kristen and Liberty. The rates are good. The terms are fantastic. There hasn't been anything wrong in the last 2 to 3 years. Hey, Jake, what can we get if we go do a competitive marketing effort this go around? Are we going to get better terms if we have someone else brought in to compete with Liberty? No, you're not. What's wrong? This is a great partnership. Let's keep it going. I don't know. You think we, what if they tweak this and you think we could get that versus, yeah, you're right. This has been great. Maybe there's some low hanging fruit. I really would like my program to have these sort of changes. Do you think Kristen will go for that? Those conversations, they can flip just on that element of trust and how much work we do and underwriters do, knowing sometimes we know what the outcome is going to be. Do our clients trust that that's where we're headed, or do they want us to go through the motions? And contractors have to do that all the time, way more than brokers, and validating costs and other things. So I understand when we get put in those positions sometimes, but it sure is nice when we have a trusted partner who says, yeah, you're right. I trust you and you know the market, so let's do that way. On the insurer side, it's calling Kristen or Liberty or another one of their peers with, hey, we've got this company. They don't have SDI, or they do and they've had some issue, whatever it is. And here's why I think they'd be a good fit for you. Having them hear me out, and with Kristen and Liberty, it's fantastic level of trust because they've more and more have said, okay, if you're telling me, Gallagher's telling me this is a decent deal to look at, we'll take a look at it, versus having to go back to the well over and over again to convince them to come take a look at this GC potential SDI fit. When there's trust there, those roadblocks just go away in both of those scenarios. And it doesn't just make my life easier, which is always nice. It makes the client's life a whole lot easier. It makes the entire relationship more efficient and functional, and gets us to focus on things like operational training and pre-qual ideas and information and data that can move the ball forward, rather than focusing on and nitpicking on little things that may not have a major impact like we're all looking for.
And, Jake, you talked about that trust level. A lot of times it takes time to establish that trust and a lot of dialogue to help establish that trust level. And fortunately, now the SDI product has been around, and people have been selling it for a good long while, at least since the late 90s. And I don't know, maybe Kristen, I would defer to you first, but what are the ways you've seen that change, perhaps for the better over that time period? And is that something that's discussed internally and collaboratively with brokers and insureds, how the product's changing?
Yeah, so there are a number of ways the product's changing, but I think you hit on it when you just talked about how long it's been around. And the biggest and most obvious change about the product is just the number of carriers that are out there in the market space. When it started back in the late 90s, again, it was SubGuard, right? And they were the only player in town. And now you look at it and you've got 7 markets out there offering overall same product, maybe done a little differently for each carrier, but it's the same product. And we definitely talk about that internally, and that it's great to have healthy competition out there. You also start to consider, all right, is there a point where is there somebody else that might want to come into this market space? And then do you get too many players in that space? And how do you differentiate your product from your peers out there? So, the underlying coverage is intended to be the same, but what do we do to make sure that we're providing the best product to each of our customers, and working with our brokers and seeking their feedback too, as we turn around and talk about what is our strategy each year, how are we going to go forward? So it's been great to watch it change, and it's crazy to think I was around when it started.
Yeah, my first job out of college, I ended up packaging up a few early SubGuard claims. I look back now, and it seems like ages ago, because it was. But and Inga, maybe from the risk manager's shoes, what's kind of your perspective of that, and how the market has changed for you over that time period?
Yeah, I would agree with Kristen with all the multiple carriers that have stepped into the market. We were with Zurich in the very beginning with SubGuard. We were kind of early to it for our size, but as we have grown, the market has grown and the market has changed, which allowed us to continue to grow our program. I would say, the biggest thing of being able to see is the limits in the capacity of being able to fit on some of these mega jobs or these larger projects that we were worried we wouldn't be able to, and going out to the carrier and saying, hey, we need this special one, and getting higher limits to fit the risk factors that go there. Of course, the deductibles have changed as those limits have changed. Premium, I think by having other players in the market, I think it's competitive. And you're getting a price. If you've got a good program and you're doing what you say you're going to do and you're managing your risk, it's a great product to have. And then, it's a matter of looking at, for internally, the way we have made changes as the risk factors have changed. We've changed our pre-qual. We've changed our approaches of looking at things of, is it a supply chain issue? Is it going to be the labor, the workforce that we're facing? Do they have the staff to be able to do these things? What is their WIP? What is their legal issues that they have going on right now? And in any cases that they have, we've evolved our pre-qual process as time has changed and growth as well.
And Jake, how about you? You've had a front row seat, I think you said since 2005, and a unique perspective, to the carrier side and the GC side. What have you seen beyond, I guess, all of those items that Kristen and Inga just mentioned?
We used to be so concerned over 10 years ago about Zurich being the only game in town and having a dedicated group when there was only one insurer offering it. And are we taking crazy pills and banking on this product? But we just believed in this product, that it was the right thing for the industry. And so what have we seen change? So much has changed, but the intention of the coverage has remained the same. And the intention of the original idea that Markman and Gray and those folks put together on a cocktail napkin many years ago is still there. What else has changed, though, is a wider acceptance, especially amongst the owner side of things. When I first started, the main thing we spent our time on was how do we convince more owners to accept this? Now, that is, GCs have gotten so good at that communication. It's still out there, but that's a huge shift, along with customization. of programs and changing terms throughout the years. During the post-Great Recession era, we saw a lot of defaults, and Zurich was the only game in town. And I'd like to give them a lot of credit. They've been bashed a lot, but they protected this program from going out with the changes they made and some of the things they did. And thank goodness other companies started up new programs and are here today. But that wouldn't have happened without Zurich making some of the changes they did, I believe. And while I didn't agree with a lot of them and the way that a lot of it went down, it still needed to happen. And what that's led to is, when I look at all of the markets available for SDI today, there's a connection to that Zurich tree. And everyone out there in SDI that I encounter now, for the most part, we're protectors of a program that is in our owner client's best interest. It is absolutely the best protection for the job based on what's available in the marketplace for sub-default risk. So it's in our owner client's best interest. So that's a great place to start. And now we've got all these other markets that are out there that are allowing us to customize and put our projects and our owner clients' projects in a position to have protection should something happen. That has been an awesome evolution in all of this, when it looked like for a moment in time this thing was going under. So I think just where we are today from where we were, a lot of lessons I think can be taken and are being taken by the current leadership at all the respective insurers and at the GCs out there. I think there's risk management is now more in the C-suite than it used to be. SDI is way more known than it used to be. And the combination of those things have made for, I think, a great evolution in this program and general contractor risk management.
Definitely agreed, Jake. And this has been such an awesome conversation. I know it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited to share with you guys. As you know from having been on the show in the past, we do like to give our audience an action item, right? So if they're listening today, if you're a broker, a GC, a carrier, and you're going, okay, well, what does this all mean to me, right? How do I move forward with this? What would that action item and what would that takeaway be for our listeners? So we've gone to Kristen a lot to begin with. I'm going to kick it around a little bit and go to Inga first, and then we'll go back to Kristen and Jake. How about that? So Inga, what would be your action item for the audience?
I would say set a goal. If you haven't started your SDI program, come up with a goal and try to drive towards it. It's not a simple process to get it up and going, but setting that goal, starting the open communication with your broker and with your senior level management to work through the process, and having that goal will help you drive to get there. It's been a great product for us. I'm grateful that we were able to start it up and keep driving it, but it is a complete collaboration amongst internally, your broker and your carrier.
Excellent. All right, now Kristen, back over to you.
All right, so I would just say take the opportunities to engage all three parties, right? So we're all busy, have a lot of things going on, but when you have your insurance carrier saying, hey, I want to come out, I'd like to see a job site, they're showing interest in you and they're wanting to build that relationship with you. They're not there just to cause you to do one more thing in your day. They really want to build that relationship with you. So take the time to engage, and it'll benefit at the end of the day as well, because then when you do have that odd request or that claim comes up, they already have a relationship and rapport built with you, and it makes it a lot easier to navigate. It's, not nearly the hurdle to get over that than if you're just a stranger to them. It's not a transactional type of coverage. So build that relationship when that opportunity presents itself.
It's almost like the difference between an email and a phone call, right? And without that relationship, I'm going to email that person because I don't really know them. But if you've had a few of those, let me call Kristen right now. I just want to run this by her. And sometimes a 10-minute phone call can be, any number of emails back and forth and details, and it's just so much easier sometimes. So definitely a great point there, Kristen. And then Jake, last but not least, what would be your takeaway here?
This is dangerous, but engage the operations team. My experience has been there's a lot that gets lost in translation. Operations are builders, they're problem solvers, they're phenomenal, they're why we're all here. Insurance is not their forte, nor should it be. So engage with them to find out what's working, what's not working. You may get great feedback. You may scratch your head wondering what they heard in the last training, but maybe that's an opportunity to then engage in more training. But I think just by having those conversations, collaborating with the folks that are actually out there doing this stuff, it will help the overall internal movement of SDI at your company. And then it gives Kristen, Inga, and I a lot of fun stuff to hypothetically talk about, if you will.
Can't wait for that call, Jake.
Just gonna say, Jake Danger Concannon over there at Gallagher. Love that. Well, guys, as we wrap this up, it's been again such a privilege to speak with all three of you here on the show. Again, this is the Building Bite, so that's building insurance technology with the experts. You are today's experts, and I would ask you guys, what are you taking a bite out of today? So, Kristen, is it going to be more of that Texas barbecue, or what are we thinking?
Nope, today I'm feeling a little spicy, so how about a margarita and some Mexican food?
Sounds fantastic. Inga, what about you? What's on the menu down in Virginia?
We're going to do probably a sunset dinner and drink at the boathouse.
Love that. Jake?
It's Dungeness crab season here in San Francisco. So give me a big old bowl of crab and a bib, please.
Now, see, that could be dangerous, Jake. So there you go, living up to your name.
I think you guys eat much better than I do, it sounds like. But I would like to thank you for joining us today. Appreciate all of you taking the time to facilitate that great discussion. If our listeners want to hook up with you after the podcast, need to get in touch with you, where can they find you? Kristen, I'll start with you.
All right, you can find me on LinkedIn, or email is kristen.weber@libertymutual.com.
All right, Inga, how about yourself?
The same. LinkedIn's easy to get a hold of me, or my email, inga.mackereth@hourigan.group.
All right. And Jake, how about yourself?
I think I'll round it out with the same. Hit me up on LinkedIn at Jake Concannon or Jake_Concannon at ajg.com. And thank you both for today. This is awesome.
Oh, this is really
Absolutely.
Fun. Thank you.
Again, appreciate you guys taking the time. Good to see you all this past week in Florida, and hope to see you all again in person soon.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know somebody who would be a perfect guest, let us know at connect@thebuildingbite.com.